Hey guys, Sheep here, back again with another Watcher of Realms video, and this one's just going to be my clear of the hard void rift, and I'm just going to record my runs and skip out all the collecting of bits in the middle and stuff like that, because this video will take forever if I don't do that. So this is the first stage, and I'm using Abomination and Valkyrie on the bottom. So when he dies she can revive him, and I'm using Isolde in the top. I didn't have any good defenders at the time, so this is the way that I found a workaround for it. You just want to put your DPS sort of in the middle line there, if you're using an Oleg strategy where I've put them. You probably don't need the second healer, but I just used it anyway. You could probably take Hollow out and just put more DPS down the bottom side. But because I beat it with 3 stars already, I just press auto for it now. And yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. There's only one tank to take the rocks in the top, and in the bottom my Abomination is dealing with all those exploding bomb things, and you just want magic damage basically to kill the mobs. One for the top and one for the bottom, and I've got Silas there to help out the top, because at the time my Pyros wasn't very strong. He can basically be any other magic damage dealer. If you've got like Vienna or Iona or someone like that, probably Raiden can even work. And there you go. That's the first one cleared. I don't think that first stage is too hard once you've got the basics down. You can see Pyros now doing the most damage, but you know, it's not that hard, that one. Okay, and the next one. Here I've got Medan for cleansing. It was pretty important for me, because otherwise you just take so much damage. Before I was using Hollow here as another healer. First off, I'm just going to put my Karmet down, because his ult takes 6 years to regenerate. I tried to click off of that thing to get rid of it because it annoys me, but I accidentally clicked on it. The little pop-up thing to tell you how it works. So here, my Karmet's in danger here. He takes a lot of damage, so I've just put my Medan down because I really want her cleanse to come up as soon as possible. And you can see he almost died there. So close. I'm going to put my second magic damage dealer down, who's Laseer. I think anyone works in this slot as well. I think I managed to clear it with Pyros before, but I got Laseer more recently, so I've just been using him when I can. His damage isn't that great, and he's not like fully skilled up or anything. I use my Karmet ult there just to clear out the top wave. I'm going to put my Vortex down just for more healing. Use my Medan ultimate just to cleanse off that poison. If you've got Elowin, obviously Elowin's probably the best for that. And now here comes some more rocks on my Oleg. I think I tried using Abomination and Valkyrie, but my Valkyrie damage is just really bad, so it wasn't really working that well for me, but she's quite tanky, so it's good on the rocks. My Laseer obviously just got one shot. I probably should have put my Raiden in here just to help clear them out. I'm just waiting here for my Medan ultimate. You can see how much damage the poison is. It really does a lot of damage, so having Medan there for the cleanse is kind of essential for me. I'm going to use my ultimates on my healers when I can. I was going to put Raiden in, but I noticed that my Laseer is going to be back up and he does slightly more damage, so I'm just going to wait for that. Use my Karmet ult on the top to clear out the enemies, and the rocks are going to start coming down. But for some reason they didn't, or I don't know. Either way, he generally survives, and if he dies then I'd have put my Raiden in there. My cleanse isn't up from Medan, so that's not that great. Just using my ultimates basically. I don't know why I didn't use the Medan ult there for the cleanse. Use my Vortex ult to keep my Karmet alive. Just going to put my Raiden down on the bottom for a bit of extra damage on that enemy, because this is the last wave. And it's basically done. So that's the second battle completed. Karmet doing all of the damage basically. Okay, and the next one is just one of the gold raid things. These are pretty easy, so just use any AoE damage that you have. I've obviously got better heroes than I've used here, but when I can auto-fight it, I just press auto-fight, and if it fails, then I will equip the people with the gear that need it, or whatever. But yeah, it's basically pretty easy. I think these are easier than EXP Raid 8, so yeah, it's not that hard. You just need AoE damage and, you know, people there to block them, basically. Don't think I even used my Hatsa ult in this whole fight. It's just say, oh, I did use it then, but I normally just save it in case any get through, but the chances of that are pretty low. If I had, obviously, Vienna, or any other mages, I'd have probably put them in, but this is beating it, it's good enough, so I'm not going to bother changing it. And I think these are probably the easiest part of the Void Rift, so there's not really that much point going into it in depth. I think Comet doing a load of damage, Abomination surprisingly doing quite a lot of damage. You need a lot of damage for these, but it's not very hard. Okay, here's the next one, another auto fight. If I do remember, I'll put the teams that I used, but I don't find that too hard. I use Lunaria here for the top, facing upwards, just to kill those airborne enemies. If you've got another marksman, any marksman basically works, you know, Brienne, Idril, anyone like that. I put my Silas on the left just to ult down the boss and the shield. I put my Karmat on the right because a lot of heavy enemies comes from that side. And you just want to be wary when placing your enemies that I think the boss targets the last enemy place, so, you know, save up costs, and when you need to put a DPS down, put them down. And then put your healer or someone who can actually tank it. Just use my ults here to kill it quickly on my Dolores and Setram. More flying enemies are coming, and Lunaria doesn't really have that great gear, but it's not very difficult. It's more your tanks just need to survive a bit, and you need magic damage to kill the waves. You can see on the left my Silas is kind of struggling. I don't think I'm going to break the shield down, but it doesn't really matter, I don't think. Olag was the last placed hero, so he's tanking all of the hits from the boss. And you can see the little orb thing above the Calypso boss, and I think that means how many stacks of the shield you haven't killed. And if you don't kill the shield, she gets another stack, and then she really does start doing damage, so you want to kill most of them if you can. And there's that one. It's, I think, one of the easier stages. And Silas doing most of the damage, and Setram and Karmet doing the rest. And here's the next one. This one took me a while to get down, but as long as you can nuke down the shields and you have enough cost, this one's not really that hard either. I just restarted here because I faced my wrath the wrong way. It really doesn't matter, but I'm weird like that. That annoyed me, so I reset. I'm going to place my Silas down. You really want to get down your DPS here first, because the boss will target the last placed hero, and she'll just one-shot them basically, especially if you don't take down her shield stacks. So I've placed Wrath at the bottom, he deals with that all fine. I've placed Pyros facing up on the upper left platform, and I'm going to use his ultimate, and obviously having Setram breaks down that shield, so I'm going to place Setram here on the bottom to deal with the last stage of the shield from the boss. And I think I had to retry this because I didn't place my tank down in time and they just walked through. The boss has finally come in the bottom left corner. I'm just going to place my Vortex down now so that he can tank the the boss's basic attacks and use Silas' ultimate to take down the shield. You can see I actually failed here. I have to restart because I should have put my Regulus down. Silly mistake. I'm just stalling here like, how was I that stupid? But just retry. Karmit is really not needed in this team. It's just, I don't know, he was just an option. Because you need someone to kill the heavy enemies that walk down at the bottom, but you also need to kill each stage of the boss's stacks. I think you can get away with not killing one of the shields, but she really stacks up her damage. So, also you can use Dallin here if you're really struggling for cost and you have high cost heroes. You can put Dallin down right at the start and then put your Wrath down, or someone like Cyrene or Navi if you don't have either of those. And that just allows you to get the cost instead of Karmit slot. You could do that because Karmit I don't really place until the end. Boss is spawned again. I'm going to use my Silas ult, and here you see instead of putting my Vortex I just place my Regulus so that he can, well, stop the enemy getting to the end, and then put my Vortex down now. And you can see that he's going to start taking the hits from the boss, but if you take out all of the shields, he can tank it and survive it fine. So there I pop my my Pyros ultimate, and him just with his ultimate and having Cetrem on the field was enough to take down the boss. Now I'm going to use Cetrem ultimate to kill the next shield. You can probably use another marksman, but obviously I've got these, so I'm just going to use what I have. It makes it easier. See, she's not really hitting that much damage. And here at this point, Silas and Pyros are basically useless. They don't really do anything. I just don't remove them because I can't be bothered. And they get a couple hits off, and I think I can get one hit off from Pyros in the end. The boss is just hitting my Vortex, and he just keeps giving himself a shield so he never dies. Use my Cetrem ultimate one more time to finish it off. And I think I'll just I remove my Vortex here and put in my Karmit, though it basically does nothing. You're going to use my Pyros ultimate as well on this mob that spawned up there. For some reason Pyros' ultimate has a really weird range, like it was out of the range and it still managed to hit. Now we just need to clear up the last of the remaining enemies, and the stage will be complete. In some of the stages I think I forget to check the damage at the end. This one I didn't. Most of the damage coming from Cetrem because he's obviously at the bottom hitting the mobs, and he's also hitting the boss for an extended period of time. So here's the next stage. Obviously pause the video if you want to see what team I used. Regulus isn't a requirement here. You can use Isolde or Baron or any other tank really. I'm going to place my Olag down first because the boss just starts hitting them, and if I put my Karmit down first he takes a hit, and then when I put my Midan down she struggles to heal him up, and then she starts taking damage and it just gets a bit messy. But I want to get my Midan out straight away basically to start generating her ult for her cleanse for the poisons. You can see she almost goes down here, but she's tanky enough to stay alive. I put my Laseer there to start generating his ult. I'm going to save my Karmit ultimate a little bit here until the next enemy wave starts coming in, because otherwise his ultimate runs out and he struggles to kill it, and you really don't want a load of enemies pushing through, especially when the next enemies to come through are like the big spider weird things. Then they do quite a lot of damage. So as soon as the poison comes from the boss or whatever it comes from, I use my Midan ult, and the rocks are going to come, so I use my Regulus ult. If you have Isolde or someone, just put them in that slot or one slot up. But I think down at the bottom is best, because then your top 2 platform tiles can survive. Oh, I was wrong, the spider mobs haven't come yet, but they will start coming on the bottom. My mid-air doesn't have enough rage regen to get it back for the cleanse. And I'm just going to remove him so he doesn't take any healing away from my Laseer, who somehow manages to survive. Sometimes he dies, and then I put Silas in his slot, or Raiden. Now I'm just waiting for the mobs to die. You see the spider, whatever it is, the 4-armed weird creature is slapping my Regulus about. He's finally gone down. I should have used Carmen's ult ages ago, but, you know, I wasn't paying attention. I'm going to wait for these rocks to come down, use my Regulus ult, just randomly, because why not? And now the rocks have finished coming down, I'm going to place my Silas down for the first time. He's going to get poisoned, but it doesn't really matter. I've got enough healing at this point, and not a lot of damage is coming in from the mobs, which are already dead. And I'm just going to use all my ults. My Silas does most of the damage to the boss here. And that's going to be the end of this one. This one's really tricky. I've seen other strats using Valkyrie and other ground heroes, but whenever I try it, they just get, you know, they don't have enough damage, or they get one shot. Maybe I can now, because my gear's slightly better, but I just haven't tried it. Most of the damage coming from Karma and Laseer, and Silas obviously doing quite a lot of damage to the boss. Okay, now we're on to the second phase, the second stage of the dungeon. And I think this one's also an auto battle. I've just put this team up on the left there, using Lunaria Lord and Wrath as the other Lord. And then place my Abomination down. You can use any old tanks there. At this stage, it really isn't that difficult. Yeah, as long as you're killing the mobs and you're not getting swamped. Put my Nyx down in the bottom, because you need a lot of AoE damage in the bottom. Honestly, where my Silas is, you could probably remove him and just put an AoE mage in there. Probably any will work. I don't know why I did that, but it's completed on an auto fight, so I'm just going to press auto and not bother changing it. If it works, it works. You can see Silas, even with his ult, it takes him ages to kill it, because he's obviously a single target hero. I put Hatset at the top there. She doesn't really do a lot, but the defense break from her bouncing attacks does help a little bit, so I'm not sure if it helps piercing damage or physical damage. It doesn't show up on the mob, so it's a bit confusing. We don't know about that. We just put it in because, you know, why not? Wrath is so good at just holding down a lane on his own. Once he gets to A5, or once you invest the soul stones in him, which I'd suggest, and unless you've got Torador, but even if you've got Torador, Wrath's still a useful unit. His damage is great, and his survivability is just kind of crazy. You can see most of the mobs are dead now. It's not really a hard stage, you just need to be able to survive and kill the enemies as they come out. Obviously on my account I've got quite a lot of good marksmen, so some of the stages where the marksmen are good I kind of excel out. Most of the damage coming from Silas, obviously that could be a mage, or whoever you've got. Silas was in my best gear, and he's still in the best individual gear that I have, but he doesn't have a set, so his damage is a bit lacking at the moment. And I don't have Vienna for the passive bond skill. So here we are with the next stage. This one's kind of annoying because the tentacles start spawning, so you need to cover quite a long range. I place down my Isolde to Bok first and then my Vortex. Vortex, I wait until he gets tentacled up by the boss, and then I put my Silas in there to break the chains out. And you just want to cover a large area with your heroes, basically, so that if any of your DPS get chained, you can attack them and get them out. Place Karmet facing in the top, just to take out the heavy enemies up there. And I've got Nyx facing right down towards the bottom in case any tentacles spawn. And I've got Lunaria facing left to deal with the ones that spawn behind my Silas, who's obviously him and Idril are covering the rest of my team from the tentacles. So Lunaria is basically just for that. You can use Brienne or basically anyone to do that. I think, yeah, when I first was doing this on the normal mode, I think I was using Light Lock to break them, because obviously he heals them as they're taking damage, and then he breaks them out by healing them, which is kind of good. And that's it, the last wave. Just use whatever ultimates I have. And that one's complete. I don't think that one's that difficult either. You just need to get the timings down and work out what heroes work for you. Silas and Karmet doing the most of the damage, then Idril, Nyx doing a little bit, and Lunaria not much. Now the next stage is one of the gold raid style stages where just loads of mobs come at you. It's just use any old DPS that you have. Put 8 DPS in and hope. And you should be able to beat it. If you are struggling to get the DPS, then obviously using people like Dolores or Autumn can work here if you don't have 8 DPS heroes. Or you can use Laurel to boost rage or boost damage when your heroes ult. Or just any other, buffing hero like Layla, or if you have them. Or if you really are struggling, you can put Mari or Aeon or someone that does CC or slows. Shamir can work here. Basically any CC AoE heroes work. You can see I'm using Abomination, Volker and Wrath, so I'm pretty sure most of you can get these stages done. Even though saying that, they did do quite a lot of damage. But yeah. Next stage. I'm using a marksman team for this one. Can't even remember what stage this is. I think it's the final Laseer one. Oh yeah, this one's quite tricky tanking these enemies. In the top side they do so much damage and you need quite a lot of AoE in the bottom. So just make sure your tanks are juiced up and you've got a decent healer. The healer doesn't really take any damage unless you let the tentacles slap you for too long. So I'm just going to start off. I'm using Hollow here. Vortex works, Hollow and Vortex are really good because they've got massive range. I'm not really sure who else you'd really use, but you can probably use any healer. Now I put my Karma in because a lot of heavy enemies come here. If you've got an AoE mage, use them because they're going to really deal with these mobs, even though you can see he's not doing a lot of damage. His gear isn't that great. I'm going to put my Nyx down in the bottom before the enemies start spawning there. I'm going to wait a little bit with my Karma ult. And place my Setram down to cover that back right side, because tentacles always spawn there and it's really annoying. Setram's probably not the best person. You can use Idril or Brienne there. And I'm just saving my last 2 marksman slots, just like that. The tentacle spawns. I put my Lunaria in, even though you can see she's struggling to kill it, but she kills it, I just remove her again. And I save my Silas for that as well, in case an unexpected tentacle pops up, and I've got a marksman to deal with it, because that's what's going to ruin your run, really. Also, if you're doing this on normal mode, you can let more than one enemy through. So at the start of the run, you can let one of those big, heavy, arm head guys that are coming down now on the middle left. You can just let 1 or 2 of them through, so that you've got more time to put out your tanks and you don't get one shot by them while you don't have a healer up or the area covered. I'm going to place my Lunaria in the bottom again to deal with that tentacle. She's really struggling because her damage is bad. Well, her damage isn't bad, my gear is bad. My gear on her is really bad, so I managed to kill her. I'm going to remove her again. I probably should ult at the top with my Karmet, but I had to save it for this stage where there's loads of enemies, because eventually 2 of the tentacle head people, the big fat blokes that are walking down now, eventually they start stacking up and they can start one-shotting your hero. You can see it's hitting my Olag for 46k. I'm just anticipating here a tentacle's going to come, and I'm tempted to put my Silas to deal with all the mobs in the end, so that's why I'm sort of jittering. A tentacle is going to come, and I'm just waiting to see where it is. I use my Karma ult, obviously, to take it down. You can see this bit's a bit annoying. My Setram has decided to hit the mobs and not the tentacle, but now he's focused on that. The only reason he's really there is to deal with that, and he can put a bit of damage down, but it's not that important. You can see 2 of the big tentacle head arm people are slapping my Olag, and they're actually going to kill him. That's why I had to save my Karmet ultimate a bit until the end, but now there's only 1, so it's manageable. I actually used my Olag ult just for the more damage reduction, because his shield wasn't cutting it. And then there's that stage done. Most of the damage coming from the Karmet. Nyx, obviously, she's just hitting a lot more enemies than anyone else. And Setram, I'm not sure where his damage came from, but I'm guessing when he was hitting the mobs. And the next battle, I'm using another sort of marksman team with Karmet, Oleg, Regulus, and a healer. Obviously, whenever you see Hollow, it's basically just put Vortex if you don't have her, because she's insanely rare. I got 1 copy of her, luckily, and I chucked a Soulstone into her. And so far, I haven't got any more copies of her. But right now, I'm stuck in tied at 125. I just passed 125, and I need about 700k to beat the next stage, which is going to take forever to get. Here, I just put my Regulus down. I'm pretty sure that you can use Wrath or some other hero. It's the same strategy as before, you know, just put down your tank, then your healer, then place down someone who can break the platform units free. In this case, I just put Silas because he's one of the better DPS. And I want him on the left side for when the boss finally comes at the end. I place my Oleg down and my Karmet. I think in this one I had quite bad unit placements. Yeah, I'm not sure where to put my heroes. I needed to put my Nyx earlier, and I should have really taken Hatset in this team instead of Nyx. But I entered the battle and I failed, and then I forgot to put her in, and then I couldn't be bothered to exit out. I just wanted to try and beat it with what I had in my team. Now all my heroes are down. Using my Nyx ult for AoE damage. If you've got Hatset, it's really nice to put on that top tire on the left. Or if you have a long range healer like Lily, you can place them where Nyx is, and place Nyx at the top and just face Lily up. Or was it Nisande? Yeah, Nisande, the piercer healer. She's got really good range. You can see here I'm a bit like, no, there's a tentacle. And then my Setram doesn't target it, obviously, because I didn't put him in a very good slot. So now I'm going to start getting nuked. It's close. I'm going to use my Hollow ult. I should have used my Setram ult earlier. But somehow I'm tanking it. It's somehow dead. And it's straight back up again. And I'm checking the range from my Setram, but he's just not attacking it. He's like, nah. I think it's a bug, actually. Why is he not hitting it? He's decided he only wants to hit the mobs. I don't know why. I don't know. It's not doing a huge amount of damage. I thought it was supposed to defense break me as well. Maybe not in this stage. I put my Regulus ult just to mitigate some damage from that tentacle, which my Setram is refusing to attack. I use my Nyx ult because there's more enemies coming from the top. Yeah, like I was saying before with the Hatset in the top left, if you have Volker as well, it's nice because you can put Hatset down, nuke all the enemies, remove her, and then she should be ready for the next wave. So if you're struggling with that and you have Hatset and Volker A1, you can deal with it that way. Now the boss is coming and there's tentacles. I'm just going to use my Regulus ult to make my team more tanky, use my Hollow ult, pop my DPS's ults just to try and nuke the boss quickly before those tentacles start rampaging on my team. And there's the next stage beaten. We're slowly getting towards the boss. Most of the damage coming from Nyx and Silas and Karma. Nyx obviously hitting AoE, she's going to do more damage just in general. And here's another auto battle. The next fight. With Wrath, Abomination, Hatset, Isolde, Vortex, Valkyrie, Silas and Setram. I think this is actually the first of the third phase, first battle of the third phase, and the third phase just seems so much easier than the first. Like, compared to the first boss, this just seems like a cakewalk. Put my Wrath down just to... I put him one tile forward so that he can hit all of those enemies. I put my Valkyrie behind him. I think as long as you're just blocking the mobs and you have enough block value in AoE damage, it's pretty easy this stage. It's just once they get frozen, they get insane. Not frozen. Once they get petrified or whatever that is, they turn to a stone and they take like way less damage. They get insane damage resistance, but as long as you can nuke them down in time, this stage really isn't that hard. You want to just bring basically a lot of damage, a couple of tanks and a healer. You can see the damage values on this is very low. 2 mil, 3 mil, about 5 mil damage in total you need. And here's the next stage, using the exact same team. I think basically any team can work for these. You don't need a huge amount of damage, you just need to bear in mind that there are air enemies in this, so having someone who can deal with those is good, someone like a Brienne or an Idril. Although in these stages I wouldn't advise bringing Idril, just for the reason that if she ults an enemy that's very far away, because she's got unlimited range, she attacks them and then she takes them down and they turn to stone, and then they're turned to stone in a very awkward position, and you can't kill them again until her ultimates back off or you remove a hero and place them in range. So I'd be wary of using her in this, or just be mindful of when you use her ult. Wrath's great in the bottom here, because if any more enemies come, he can heal himself up, so taking that damage from the flying enemies isn't that bad. I'm pretty sure Abomination can work there as well, just because he's so tanky. But I like Wrath in that side. Also in the bottom left there, where I've got Abomination and Valkyra, you can probably just put a tank and another platform AoE DPS or another DPS. I don't think the damage requirement for this is very high. Yeah, I used my Silas ult, but he doesn't even hit anyone. Setram managed to deal with it. Most of the damage coming from Hatsa, obviously she's doing AoE damage and she's hitting a lot of mobs in that area. And the next stage, can't remember which one this is. It's basically a very, very similar stage. I like just placing my heroes in the middle sort of area and just trying to stop them getting through, and then placing my DPS tile units around them. I don't think there's any air enemies in this one, so you don't have to worry about that in this stage. I like placing my Hatset there because she can cover. Her ultimate doesn't have a very large range, even though it does go all the way around her. So having her in a protruding, is that even a word? A protruding tile is really nice. One that juts out on the edge and a lot of enemies have to walk around it. Then she can hit lots of enemies. I think the idea of these stages is that you kill the summoning guys really quick, but so then obviously you don't have to kill as many enemies. If you kill the summoners, then not as many enemies come out. Hollow is just in my team, so I didn't bother retrying and taking her out, even though it would have been beneficial for me to have an extra DPS in the top right area where Karma is, because enemies start getting through. Silas is just there for moral support and a bit of damage, and if any gets through, he does tons of damage in his ultimate, so he's a useful unit because he ignores the defense. So a lot of their damage resistance, once they become petrified or turned into stone, he can sort of hit through that, and his damage isn't mitigated as much as other heroes are. I wish I had Viana so that my Silas could do even more damage, but maybe in the future. Yep, more oozes are coming. A lot of these stages are so long, you can see that one ooze got through, but for some reason it tries to go to the left portal, and it just gets blocked by my Isolde, so it's not too much of an issue for that. Yeah, obviously, I could have just put... If I didn't have Hollow here and another DPS, then they wouldn't be getting through. And now you can see all of the remaining enemies are turned to stone, and they basically take 0 damage. My Comet's hitting for 10k, but you can see Wrath is really struggling. I put my Hollow there just for the Orb of Euphoria buff to give him more attack speed. And if he did really take forever to kill it, then I would have used her ult to regenerate his ult faster. Most of the damage coming from Karmet and Hatset. And then the last stage before the boss, I think. This one's another gold stage. Same as before, just bring as much AoE damage as you can. Try and nuke them down. Volker is not ideal, Wrath's not really ideal. Abomination can do work, but he really needs his ult to be stacked up, and his ult takes forever if you haven't got it skilled up. It helps if you've got his personalised artifact, which I do have, but I've got Void Gazer on him right now because I feel like it does more damage in Guild Boss, and because the Guild Boss fight is kind of long, getting half of his ult extra doesn't really make too much of a difference for me. Because once he gets into his ult state, he's in his ult state, so once he's done 2 ults, that artifact is basically useless. But it is nice for shorter fights, because then he can get into his permanent ult a lot quicker. Which is really where he starts doing quite a lot of AoE damage. And there, that fight is finished. Karmet, Hatset, doing a lot of AoE damage, everyone doing a decent amount. So here we have it, the last boss for the Laseer rotation, and I'm using Isolde, Vortex, Hatset, Valeria, Hollow, Setram, Silas and Regulus. And I'm just going to put my Isolde, when I get enough cost, down into the bottom left to block the enemies. She's got Olag's wall so that she can block an extra enemy. And then I'm going to put my Hatset there to kill the summoners on the right and any enemies on there. If you're struggling and you're dying with your tank in the bottom or your DPS that you put there, you can put Vortex down before your DPS, but that worked out for me just fine putting my Hatset down first. I'm going to place my Hatset down facing towards where the boss spawns because his ult takes 7 years to come. Same with Valeria. And just gonna ult here with someone. No? Gonna put my Silas down so that he can start generating cost. Use my Isolde ult to block that enemy that was about to walk through, because I want to save my Hatset ult for when the summon is about to spawn. The boss is now coming. I'm going to place my Regulus in the top there just to block his path so my DPS can finish him before he starts running around. You really need to kill this boss super quick. I used my Vortex ult there because I thought an AoE hit was coming from the boss, but it wasn't. I'm not sure if I got a lucky stun with my Setram or something. I'm gonna use all my DPS ults, place my Hollow there to heal. And I use Valeria's ult a little bit earlier, but she gets some range from it. And my team of DPS there is just gonna nuke down the boss. If you can't nuke down the boss, he is just gonna start walking around and killing everyone, so it's advised that you stack your DPS units in that place. If you are struggling there and you're using maybe an Isolde Olag instead of Regulus there, if you put him down before you put your Silas, he has a bit of time to generate his shield and then he can survive for a bit longer. And the boss targets the last placed person, I think. So, but if you place him and he's already aggroed onto someone, he'll just stay on them if it's too far away. So as he starts turning the corner and starts hitting your tank in the upper cell, you can stall out the boss a bit, and you can place down your DPS safely and they won't get one shot by the boss. I actually made a mistake in this run and I removed my Silas and my tank, and then the enemies just kept coming and I was like, oh no, and I had to restart and redo this run. But I did basically everything the same except I just didn't remove them at the end. You can see here the enemies get through. I didn't even ult with Valeria. I should have just ulted and she would have probably killed them. Yep. Straight into the end. Great job, me. I was like, did I really just do that? And yep. The answer's yep, I did just do that. So do the same thing again, basically. Place my Isolde down in the bottom right. Because it clearly worked, it just wasn't enough at the end. I don't know why I decided that I was going to remove my Silas and Regulus from there. I don't know. Same again. You can see my Isolde's getting quite low, so if yours is getting low, then obviously just put Vortex before the DPS. Hatset's great here because she just regenerates her ult so quickly, so you can get away with if you're using her. I found her the best for me. I tried with multiple different things, putting Setram there, Silas there. But Setram's range is so long that he just starts attacking random stuff all over, so. A few of the oozes do get through out of the top, especially when the enemies are all stacked around your tank in the bottom. But a couple of them getting through isn't too much of a problem. I used my Isolde ult this run slightly earlier. The boss starts coming out, place my Regulus down. I wonder if he does an AoE hit here or he gets stunned by my Cetrum. Bit of lag. Gonna use my DPS ults, wait for the portal spawners to come and use my Hatsa ult. Place my hollow down and start healing. My Regulus goes really low. I think his Undying popped, but it's still fine. I managed to get his ult off in the end and everything's dead. And now I'm just waiting for the enemies to die, basically. And all the enemies to start spawning in. So after you kill the boss, they just love extending this battle as if you could tank the boss going all the way around the map, which is not going to happen. I don't know what they really planned for this fight. Or they just didn't think that you could nuke down the boss. I'm guessing for Nightmare it's going to be very difficult to nuke down the boss. On hard it's not so bad once you get it down. Or they just wanted you to play the game for longer, so they made all these spawning enemies just keep coming and coming forever. And when they do come and you finally kill them, they just turn into a rock. They become undamageable. I don't know. It's a bit of a strange stage. I don't really like these stages of phase 3. As the beginning stages, like the first stage just seems way harder than the third stage. Maybe it's just because I got stuck on it for longer, and then when they finally released this Laseer rotation, I'd already had better gear and stats and stuff, but the first few fights of phase 3 is just really easy and you just have to kill a few enemies. And you don't really need anything specific, whereas I feel like in the first phase you need really good tanks, you need magic damage to kill any of the mobs, otherwise you just do no damage to them. Here is the last enemy, and I'm just waiting for my Hatset to kill. And it's taking 4 years. But it's fine, it's fine. We managed to get through it. And there you have it. The boss is down, and Void Rift is completed. Most of the damage coming from Hatset, Cetrum, Silas, a tiny bit of damage from Valeria, but basically all of that damage is onto the boss.